Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about event sourcing in Node.js and Typescript. So what we're going to be discussing is what is event sourcing. So we're going to go through some basics of event sourcing, why use event sourcing in your applications. So why would you use it against not using it? Is it worth it? And so on. And then we're going to cover some event sourcing basics. So just a simple diagram to show how event sourcing works. And then we're going to talk about event sourcing in TypeScript. So we're going to go over a package called e-saucy, which will help us write our event sourced applications. And at the end, we have some further reading. If you want to continue to read about the topic, then you are able to do so. Okay, so what is event sourcing? So event sourcing is a way to not only record where we are at the moment, but how we got there. So if we think of the thing I always remember is accountants, is that or a bank, is that when you deposit and withdraw, they record every single thing that happens there, and then eventually they get to a state of the events accumulated. So if you had $100 or pounds, you withdraw 50, you deposit 100, you withdraw 70, you'll have 80 pounds left, because we'll go 100 and minus 50 to 70, 100 and minus to 70. So what this will do, my math's probably wrong to be honest there, but what this does is it gives you a reliable way of recording how you got to your current state. And it's very important, especially in high secure apps, where you want to know how you got there. You don't want people to be able to change things. You want to make sure everything's recorded. So all changes to application state are stored in a sequence of events. So as we just mentioned, so all the application state is stored in a sequence of events. So your events become your source of truth. So not only can we query these events, we can also use the event log to reconstruct past states. So we can go in the past and see how the states looked yesterday, or a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, and we can compare those to states in the future. This is quite good for debugging, security, and many other reasons you'd want to do this. And an ability to move your source of truth to events. So that just means that your source of truth now isn't your state. Your source of truth is the events. Your events can accumulate to state, but the events are what you can use. So in effect, what this means, and this sort of builds onto more of a DDD CQRS style, but you can destroy your state database, and as long as you have your events, you can rebuild it in any way you want. So you could have your state stored in SQL one day, and then you go, okay, actually I want it in MongoDB, and so actually I want it in Redis, and then I want it in Elasticsearch. That's all possible because your source of truth isn't your state. Your source of truth is the events now. Okay, so why use event sourcing in your applications? So the main thing is reliability. You can follow your events right up to the point of your current state. You know that you can always build your state at that point, and it just gives you a lot more sort of reason to do it in this way, because there's nothing worse than when your database gets frazzled by a bad mutation or something like that, and you're like, oh crap, what can I do? So you want that reliability. You want to be able to go around and say, oh, well, it's not a big deal. We can just rebuild the database an hour ago. So another thing is security. So because you are storing every single event that occurs, you can see where these events happen. When these events happen, you can add your metadata to see who did it, and so on. And it gives you a lot more security around than just having a database which people can just change queries to. If your state doesn't match your events, your event accumulation, then you know someone's gone and mutated a database manually. So it's a good thing to have, that you can see where your database is from now, and then where your events accumulate to. Also, event-sourced applications do have a lot of domain-driven development at its heart. So usually these sort of three things, domain-driven development, event sourcing, and CQRS, they all come together. And the main reason is that we're talking in abstractions now. So we're taking away from having a solid state concrete implementation, and we're taking the business logic out, and we're saying, well, let's publish events into a certain way that will accumulate to where we want to be. We'll hear a lot of the word aggregate probably, and this is just an object which accumulates to, it's like a part of something, so it accumulates to be the full state. And of course, it's really cool. There's nothing better than seeing, lots of events fly everywhere, and it's just building your state perfectly, and you can track everything, and you get amazing logging results. Logging is actually a big thing, which I think is great for using event-sourced applications. You can track everything. And if you want to do further readings, these will be down available either on the PowerPoint or in a description. So you have Martin Fowler's event sourcing, and event sourcing by Microservice.io, and then event sourcing in CQRS by EventStore, which is a company which is akin with Greg Young. Greg Young's quite big in domain-driven development, event sourcing, and CQRS. So they're all great reads, and I definitely recommend someone to read them, people to read them, and get that base level of understanding and knowledge of event sourcing, CQRS. Okay, so event sourcing basics. So it looks like there's a lot going on here, but this is quite general. Everyone has their own way of architecting it, but this is quite a nice, easy path to do it. So you have your user, and his input is a command or a query. That command gets handled, and it's processed to a static event. It's important that events are static, because you can't have an event which says get a query from this API, because today's result might be different than tomorrow. And when you're accumulating these events, you want to make sure your results are always the same. So commands are always present tense, and events are always past tense. So once we've got the event, we can store that in our event store, so it's now safe, it's in our source of truth, and then we can project this. So projecting is just a nice way of accumulating your events together. So if you're building a projector, you're taking your current state, you're applying your new event on top of it, and that should spit out your new state. At that point, you can update your state store. So you could say update your MongoDB instance or whatever you're using to store your state. And at that point, you have your new state. So everything is done by then. What we have, because we've built a projector and we have our events stored, is we could always run all of our events back into the projector, and we would get spit out of the state. We can take a snapshot, so that means we can say, well, at this point, this is our snapshot, this is the first state we build off, and our projector will run from this snapshot. And that's brilliant to do. There's a lot of possibility and opportunities to, you can even start doing event sourcing from state if you have to. Okay, so event sourcing in TypeScript and NodeJS. This is sort of the meatier part of the topic. So we're going to go over a package called e-saucy. So let's have a look at this. So what we have here is in the Visual Studio Code, we just have a basic TypeScript repository. So we just have our e-saucy import, and that's as simple as npm install e-saucy. And we just have our input, and we have a random number generator. So what we're going to build in this demo is just a simple betting app. Gambling's bad, but it's nice and easy to build. So okay, so we're gonna have an input of an amount bet of Bitcoin, so 234.626, whatever it is. First thing we're going to do is we're going to turn this import into a command. So commands are always present tense, so we're going to have a better mount command. Implements command. Implement that, and that will just give us an ID and date. So what we want is our mount bet stored, and that will be it. Brilliant. So now we want a command handler for this command. So let's do that. Let's change this to an int. Okay, so command handler. So let's use now. Okay, so we're going to have our bet amount command handler, and that's going to implement command handler. Command handler takes two types. So it takes a command and an event. So let's make our event. Place then there we go, and we just want the amount bet stored, number rolled as well. So we're going to capture the number and set the number as well, so the winnings. And so we're going to add these into our command handler. So we're going to have our bet amount command, and then we're going to have our bet place event. Brilliant. And then we're going to implement the method. So it's execute. So we're going to pretend this is async. So all this does is inputs a command and then outputs an event. So what we have just at the bottom here is a very basic command, and we're not going to deal with wins here. We have a very basic random number generator here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that to generate a random number and decide if the player has won. Okay, so let's get started then. So if we take our command and mount bet, the first thing we want to do actually is roll the number. So we generate a random number. And from that we will say if number is greater than, let's do greater than 52, then we're going to set the bet placed event to true, else it's equal to false. Brilliant. Let's add these values in here. Add number. Mount that. Date. Let's have a new date here. date stamp it, ID, that 1, 2, 3. Make sure it's unique. Let's type this a little bit then. Let's do that soon. Why? Okay, and then by default we'll have 1 as false. Don't want to keep paying people out. Okay, cool. So we got an event. We ran some data here, so this could be asynchronous or anything. The point is we're generating a number. We're checking if they win, and then we're going to return our event. Brilliant. So now we have our command handler ready. So while we've got that, we can move on to our state. So we're going to make this a class and have our user deposit. State. Let's do this. So our state will always have a number, and this number will increment as we add our events. So we should be able to see how many events it took to track to get to the current state we are now. Brilliant. So we have our number, our money. Let's give this no money to start. This number, and we'll probably have like a name. But for our example, we're not going to bother with a name. Let's keep it simple. Okay, brilliant. So we have our user money state, and now what we're going to do is going to write a projector, and what this will do is it will take a previous state and update the state to the new state. So let's implement a projector. Implement an iProjector. And we're going to pass in the placed event and the user money state. We've got one implement that. Oh. There we go. And this will take a current state and the event, and it will spit out the new state. So let's do that. So current state dot index plus, so we're going to increment our index, and then we're going to say current state dot money. So the event win plus. Then if they didn't win, then current state, we're going to remove the amount there. So this is simple of the ×2 thing. So if they get higher than 52, their money gets doubled. Otherwise, they lose. We take their money. Brilliant. Okay, so that's all we have to do, and then we're going to return the current state. Maybe the more correct. There we go. And if we want it to be super secure, could do something like this. It's quite simple. Index and state +1. If we give my let's make it simple. The other side. There we go. Brilliant. And then we can get rid of this. Turn the new state. Brilliant. Okay, so what we've done there is we've said, let's take our current state, let's apply the event on top of it. So increment the state index, and then if they win, add the amount bet. If they lose, take it out from them. So brilliant. So now we have a command handler and a projector. So what we want to do then is we want to take our input, we want to turn it to a command, and then we want it to project, and then from that we should get output. And then I guess one more thing we can do is we can create a event-based service. So let's call this bet service. This will extend event-based service. This takes quite a few things, so take the command event, and it will take the command event and the state. So we're going to pass in each one of these, that command, then state, implement abstract classes. What we're also going to do is implement constructor. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, so we are adding constructor to the base service, and we're going to add in our super, which is the constructor for the event-based service. We're going to add our command handler, our projector, and our event store. We don't actually have an event store yet, so let's quickly make one. Let's call it the local event store. I'm just going to store it locally. An event store, very simple. That's going to publish the event. So all we're going to do for this is store all of our events, which we really don't think we shouldn't really do this, but we're going to redo it. So we're going to store our event by its ID. this is where you would do your database query. So your database or event store, your data store. So you'd say publish this event here, and it'd be added on top of the stack, depending on how you're storing your events. But for now, we're just going to store it in a local database. In fact, yeah, I'll just leave it like that actually. Okay. Cool, so let's do this now. So we want to create a new bettermount command handler. So what we're doing here is we're saying use this command handler, and then new amount bet projector, bet place projector, sorry, new local event store. Now, usually you could pass this in via the constructor for this service, or you could use a dependency injection framework back in Versify to inject it in, or you could do it however you want. But for now, we're just going to pass it into the super, and the bet service automatically has these passed through. Okay, so now we get on to the more juicy stuff. So, how is our service going to get the current state? Because if you think of it, what we're going to do is we're going to update the state with events. So this is where you can usually have a database call. So you have your state in MongoDB, you call MongoDB and say, get me the state for user money. And that will return the state, and that's all you need here. But we're going to be lazy, and we're just going to return an empty state. Well, a money state which is made on the fly. So money state has a index. We're going to have an index 0, and then we're going to have our money also set to 0. Brilliant. And then we want to update our state, so we get our current state. And this is where we would actually send our state to the database to say this is the updated state. So what we're going to do here is nothing. We're just going to ignore this. But what you would do is send this to your database to get the data. Okay. So brilliant. So now what we want to do, after we've got everything set up, so we have our input, our commands, our events, and our state. Then we have our command handlers and our projectors. So that would handle our commands and that will handle our events. We have an event store, so where we're going to store our events. And we have a service which will tie everything together. So the service will take a command and spit out the updated event. Brilliant, so let's have a run of this then. So let's first take our input, and let's say, let's turn this to command, not yet. Brilliant, okay, so mount command, mount that, here's the input, mount that. So this would be usually, this mapping could be done in any of your application layers. So this could be a HTTP REST endpoint, or this could be a queuing layer, like a persistence layer. What we're going to do is just go do it in console for now, to keep it nice and simple. So we're going to persist the amount there. We're going to add a date stamp it, timestamp it, and an ID of amount etc. This would usually be unique, but for now it's simple. Brilliant. So we got our command, and then we want our command handler. Yeah, again, this would be something you'd inject or pass in through dependency inversion. We're just going to create one here. New bettermount command handler. we need to make a service. So, brilliant. Okay, so we've got a command, and then what we're going to do is service.execute. I'm going to execute the command. Now what we should see is the state updated. So let's console log the state. The result. In this case, but it's the updated state. Brilliant. So let's minimize all of our setup here. Well, so let's see how this runs now. npm start. This will just compile our TypeScript and run apt.ts. Boom. So what we got now is index of 1 because we've incremented from our event, and the money gone up. So does that mean that we must have won that bet? So let's run it again, see if we win again. We win again. So we are bowling right now. There we go. Okay, so we lost that one. So what would usually happen if we were actually implementing a proper state of inside our service? We were actually implementing a proper get current state and update state. Then what you would see is that the current state updates to new state, and the update state will send that updated state to your database. But we're being lazy, we're just using one event, we're just passing a standard empty state. We're not doing any updates, and it's all local. So, brilliant. So the last part of this is further readings. So if you're interested in learning more about event sourcing in CQRS, there's amazing people who've done great talks about this. Greg Young has many videos on YouTube. Great talks about it. CQRS documentation as well by Greg Young. Martin Fowler has on his website a blog about event sourcing, and in Event Store themselves they also have event sourcing in CQRS. So there's a great amount of knowledge shared across these people. These people definitely know a lot more than me about event sourcing, so please check them out, look it up, read it up. It is quite an advanced topic, so definitely take your time and take it slow and see where you get. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that this has helped anyone write in Node and TypeScript write event source applications.